pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jamie.
Okay. I just took it off to separate.
Okay, we'll
the
call the
videos.
September 17th, 2020 Village Board Meeting to order. Number 2, roll call shows Carl is excused and Peter is excused. Everyone else should be in attendance. Are there any agenda changes? If not, we'll move to 4, consent agenda. September 1st, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. September 1st, 2020 committee of the whole minutes. C, licenses and permits as presented. And D, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. Are there any questions? If not, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, Dan.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. 5, pre-registered citizens to be heard. There are none. 6, committee reports. A, library board.
We met on September 8th, I believe it was. The main focus of our attention right now is the 2021 budget. Our Personnel and Finance Committee is going to meet this coming Wednesday afternoon, I believe, to discuss that further. One of our priorities is to really concentrate on getting our wages of our staff up to where they should be based on OWLs and other library recommendation or status of other libraries in the OWL system. So that's one of our main focuses. We know that in 2022, the budget is going to look a lot different from OWLs due to the COVID, because they'll base it on this year. So we're trying to do some good planning.
What time is their meeting, Pat?
What did we decide on, 4:30? Or hasn't it?
A meeting time hasn't been set yet. We're trying to work with the committee members'
Okay.
schedules.
Any other questions for Pat? We'll go to 7, unfinished business from previous meetings, and there is none. 8, new business. A, future of senior center. And I believe that we aren't doing anything with that at this time.
Do you need a motion to just defer it right now? You know, do we need anything?
I don't think there's any action
No.
that's been taken, so you wouldn't have to do.
Okay, all right. I think that was we're just deferring it right now.
Is it okay with the board's permission if we kind of keep it on our radar on the senior activities committee too? Because the people that were here are very interested in getting a group together at some point to do some brainstorming, community people.
Harm
So-
in gathering details
okay.
and making,
No.
I mean,
a wish
just
list,
knowing,
right?
just knowing there's no,
I
You
think
know.
you have a head nod from the board. Do
Okay.
you not all agree?
Yeah, is there do we need to create like an ad hoc committee that?
well, that's probably what we were just
Well,
talking
yeah.
about briefly, and in fact, mentioning the Historical Preservation Society too is, you know, if we, but, you know, just
Yeah.
a discussion purposes.
So in the future, maybe we'll talk about an ad hoc. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to B, Opera House lease. And that also has been decided to put
Unless there's
aside
any
at this time
comments
until we
on-
have a public facility meeting.
Unless there's comments on amounts or,
Um,
I guess that was the only thing that was.
yeah. So what's our cost for the building? Assuming that we don't, I mean, so if we lease it out, we're not paying for supplies, utilities, professional services, right?
what's the
Correct.
cost if it's
What's
not
the-
being
what's the
leased at all,
cost-
just
What's
to
the
sit
cost of the
there?
building, just sitting there?
No,
Well,
no use, so just
No
keeping.
utilities, nothing?
No, keep the utilities, but just
So
what it
we-
is, just to not keep the pipes freezing and whatever. What's
And
the
well,
fixed cost?
It's pretty much what the expenses have been. I mean, that's,
and
well, I mean, if you're talking utilities, it was around 11,000 or so. Last last year, and then 8,000 the year prior. So,
Last year was high because it had a higher rental, it looked like. Normal.
Is there a property tax associated with that
No.
property?
no,
No, okay. So do we have a fixed cost, even if if we lease it, all of our, I just wanna be sure, if we lease it, all of our expenses are passed on? We don't have any expenses then?
correct. We would have whatever, so that lease would make it so that we were a positive $7,200. Well, $7,000, because the 200 is part of the insurance.
Or
Okay.
even have like supplies,
No,
if nobody's in there.
they would have to, they would take all of that.
That's like cleaning supplies and
No,
whatever, is that what
that's
you're
I mean,
talking about?
If nobody's in there,
Correct. Oh, if no one's in there, yeah, I mean, we would,
that's the question.
Right,
some of the
what is what is the cost if nothing happened in the building, it just sat?
well, it'd be
all day.
around 11,000.
Well, why don't you show them on their chart, in your chart? What is
So-
your computation?
Basically 2019, and it would just be utilities. If you're not gonna do anything, you're not gonna do improvements, not gonna rent it out, because payroll takes a good portion of it, or in services, you would pretty much just have utilities payments, other than potentially having someone walk through it to make sure that nothing's leaking or something.
So there could be repair costs for anything that would have to be, utilities, one of the burners pumps going out or
Right.
so it'd be more just than the utility cost, there is some maintenance
Maintenance.
cost for repairs.
What year did the AC go in downstairs? Just wanna see how
I
that
think
changed.
the Legion had,
Yeah, they had in the Legion thing, because they
they
the
said,
two AC, central AC.
Doesn't say
Yeah.
though, the date.
Oh,
The
okay.
date, I was just curious, like, to find out if
I
that, how that
couldn't tell
changed
you, that
things.
wasn't,
Cause I know that the person that was renting it, anytime I would go there, the AC was on full blast type of thing. I'm just kinda curious, like with utilities, how that might be different.
well, between the 2 years, 2018 was, 8,000 for the utilities. Last year, 2019 was around 11,000 for the utilities. That's probably the difference.
Okay,
But that could just be electricity as well, water as well,
yeah.
so.
And then Carl has a list of the upcoming costs that we will have to put in that building soon of $430,000.
Those were in the CIP for the next 5 years.
That's what I was
Yeah.
asking you about earlier. They were in there and like everything Opera House was red and then, but like I was trying to figure out, like there were things in there like replacing the flooring and doing things. So it's in there, but that's included in that 400 and some thousand, so there are expenses that are outside of the norm. Is that correct?
Yes, those would be additions at some point that we would have to add in our CIP program, yes,
Yeah, it's CIP, so it's improvements rather than just maintenance.
right.
And then there would be, the other question, follow-up to that would be, if we lease the property for a year and say they just utilize the space and don't do anything to improve the space at all, and the current status of the space degrades, how much more is it going to cost us to get, or if there is gonna be more? Maybe it'll be the same cost, but
Right.
if we, a lot of times if you let things deteriorate, it costs you more moving forward, so.
I think Dan, I don't know much about that type of stuff as much as, Dan might know more
Well,
about your
any
costs,
kind of
but-
heating system, you have to have it inspected once a year. I mean, just as preventive maintenance, so.
I
So
could-
there are always costs to do something every 6 months, so.
I mean, included in the number Jeannie gave, I just want to be clear here. So we've got here, windows in the Schneider Ballroom, $100,000. New floor in the ballroom, $35,000. Marquee signage,
It's front, like the front signage is kind of what Carl has put in there.
like a LED sign, or?
I have no idea.
That's 20 grand. That's why I'm just wondering. So
I'm
that,
guessing it was like a nicer sign for the front,
right.
so. I
So
don't-
he's got it in this, but it's not,
It's not necessarily in the CIP program for the next 5 years. It's in the list of potential updates and prioritized at a certain level, from what I remember.
He had them all highlighted red, and that's what made me look at them right away.
Right, because
Okay.
potentially we might not have to pay them. They have talked, they haven't promised anything, but basically they're very willing to kind of help with certain things, is what they've said. But, you know, nothing's in writing, nothing, so, yeah.
What does that mean? They're very willing to help with certain things. What does that mean?
So it was brought up, I mean, we told them the CIP projects that are coming up
Mhm.
that have to get redone.
Okay.
They didn't find issues with any of them, potentially, and depending on how long they lease it for, I could see them potentially putting money towards this building and doing improvements and making it kind of like a gift to us.
Okay.
But
Do they-
that was said in a meeting at one point. It was not in writing. It's not 100% a promise. It's not in our lease because it was said at one point. That's
Okay.
not saying it's a promise.
Okay.
It should be
So-
very clear that this is stuff that needs to be done, is planned to be done when we talk about the lease with them.
Exactly,
Right.
but I also need to know, are they aware that it's also a registered historical
Correct.
site with the state? So that whatever did they do, so whatever we do, that's why the front doors cost a little more, or that's why we had to pay a little more for them because of the state registry. So that's what I just wanna make sure that they know that that's,
That was brought up in a public facility
Yeah,
meeting,
Yeah.
not,
it was.
not meaning that they know all the stipulations along with it. I know that you have brought that up, that there
I
are
just wanna make sure,
stipulations, so,
yeah.
maybe somebody on their end should really be researching that,
Yeah,
so they
like-
know.
Like when I see new floor, that's what I immediately look at and go, oh, we probably should double check that that's, we need to do it within whatever, I don't know.
That should probably end up in writing in the final draft of the
Yeah.
lease.
Mhm. But it's a
The-
registered,
the-
yeah, because,
And they said they would be very respectful, knowing that it was a historical building. And in the lease, it does say they could not do anything without permission from the village first. So I think we've covered that pretty well in the lease.
it does say in the lease with the public works director, with permission of the public works director. So are we then, like, would anything come to the board, or this is all just public works director then works with, how does that work?
Well, that can always be changed, but I think for the most part, Carl knows what, because he's the one in the position right now, and I think that's probably why it was put that way.
And I'm thinking like for the future, like a new
Right.
public works director comes in and doesn't maybe know some of the history of whatever.
Right. And like I said, that can be changed in the lease if we need to.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we will go to C, termination of use agreement, Historical Society, and that is also being put aside.
Do you
At
need a
this
motion
time?
to defer that? Bob, no?
I don't
Okay.
think so, there's no action taken.
D would be payroll tax executive order.
I just put this on here because Libby would like direction as far as how to proceed. It's not mandatory, and I think the consensus is to just keep payroll the way it is and not defer the monies, because they will have to pay it back starting in January.
Yeah.
So I guess I would like direction from the board.
It hasn't, I mean, obviously, we're not under any kind of mandate, but there are groups that are mandated, right? I mean,
Right.
And we're not, and I
Right,
think,
I think it's what, military and
Federal.
federal?
Yeah.
Federal, yeah.
I can't imagine it being a benefit to any of our staff right now to defer it, but then take out double
Right,
come next, that would be, to me, horrible. Yeah,
But what if somebody wants to do it?
yeah, I mean.
Then what do we say?
Maybe, I guess.
I think
Well-
basically what we need to do is explain to our employees how this would be handled. And I can't see any employees wanting less taken out right now and then paying a lot more in the beginning of the year. So I ask that all the employees and all the village board would understand that this is exactly what would be happening. And so that's why we need to take the initiative to give Libby the direction she needs at this time. And then you do explain it to the employees. It's actually for their benefit how we decide.
Yeah.
If we would say, let's not do this, it's only gonna hurt our employees. in the long run.
I think the spirit of the program was intended to, that if somebody has right now, a lesser income because of COVID, or because of things happen, you know, we don't really have that situation happening right here.
Well, we don't know that though. I mean, somebody, one of the village employees, their spouse could be unemployed because of that.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that's why I say, if somebody says, hey, you know, the president came on and said that I don't have to pay these taxes, why are you taking it out of my check? And then
It's such a minimal amount.
I understand.
It's
It's
minimal.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
completely understand.
I don't see how it's helping them, and then in 3 months,
But that's the
They're-
future.
they're-
You don't-
It's
Nobody knows
really-
that for
supposed-
sure.
right,
really
you
a
can't
wash.
look into the future.
Yes, that's why you can't say in 3 months they're gonna have to pay it back. Nobody
Right.
knows that for sure. That hasn't been established as to what's going to happen in the future. There's a couple of ways that it could come back out, but it hasn't been set up as to how it's going to be repaid or if it's going to be repaid.
Bob, are you aware, I mean, is there any way to do like a waiver, like, where, let's say we have an employee that wants it pulled? Or doesn't want theirs,
You know, to have individual persons, like a couple employees saying they'll do it and the rest not,
yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think
it,
we wanna go there.
What do we use for payroll?
What do we use for payroll?
What do we use for payroll?
That's our Civic, our accounting system that we upgraded, 2 upgrades.
Civic is all.
Okay.
Yep.
And you don't have, I mean, this is just, so I do my own payroll at work, right? So I use QuickBooks and I do payroll. And every one of my employees has a different amount of withholdings. They fill out, that I have 4 kids, I have no kids, I'm single, I'm married, everybody's got a different tax situation. So, I mean, that's simpler because, you know, because there's no potential for correction later. But most payroll systems will allow you to configure an individual's payroll however they want it configured.
Well, you can.
And change it.
Right, we can. We can physically do that.
Okay.
I think the worst thing is if there isn't forgiveness, then an employee who gets a raise will end up paying almost a lot, will pay more than what they would have had to pay if they just didn't do it at all. So you're taking
How would they have to pay more?
because
To explain
as
that.
right now, it's been said that it's double next year. So basically, if I get a raise of $1, I'm gonna have to pay taxes on that extra $1 next year, and if it's double of next year's, then I'm gonna have to pay it all. I don't necessarily know how it's gonna actually go through when they do the payback.
Well, I mean, it's a social security tax is what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Okay, so
It's
social
a
security.
percentage of your wage, so.
Okay, so-
6.75%.
Oh, so you're
You
gonna
got a
increase the
raise.
percentage of withholdings next year.
So the percentage will stay the same, but
Then-
if your wages increase, then the actual amount increases.
Yeah, so you
That would have
you have to pay back the exact same amount that you are getting
This is
not taken out of your check right now.
No,
No.
it's not.
I don't understand how that works.
You'd be
Instead, you
paying
pay
on what your total dollars.
13% next year for the first 4 months. So if I get a raise, I'm gonna be paying 13%
Okay,
to satisfy these last 4 months. So that raise is gonna be a portion of that. That's from what we know as of right
Increase in
now.
total
Your,
wage.
your base from
Would
now.
not-
to-
would cause the
That's just
increase.
deferred.
no, I completely understand this differently.
Okay.
It's a deferment.
That's what I
Right.
thought it was.
So a deferment means that you are going to pay back the amount that was deferred, not the amount deferred at a
Right,
higher
but
rate or anything
That's what was
else.
said, but when, in the payback, from what I have seen, it says.
There's no payback yet, so they can't, we're speculating. No.
Well, we're speculating either way, though.
Yes,
With all
well,
this-
no, the only way we're speculating is if we talk about how that money is going to be paid back. Right now, the only thing we're discussing is not speculation, is whether or not we take it out or we don't take it out. That's the only thing that we can talk about, because we don't know how the payback is going to function.
Correct. The village is the one who would end up being the one costing more. As from what we were told from what I saw, it was the village who was at it. Or it's the employer.
The
who's
employer
gonna-
portion.
Yeah, the employer portion of it is gonna have to get paid back, no matter what.
Okay, so
That's the
If-
problem with it.
if an employee chooses to defer, right, it's 7.5%, right?
6.75.
Okay, so I'm self-employed, so it's more. Okay, so, yeah, I have to pay double. Okay, so if they choose to defer, there's the employee portion and the employer portion. Okay, I understand that the employee portion doesn't get withheld, but the employer contribution doesn't get paid?
Not that I know of. Jamie?
I don't know.
I wasn't under the impression that the employer got any sort of a tax break
I don't know.
on their contribution.
If you're looking to do this, I think we should get some input from,
The Department of Revenue has not given any clear-cut guidelines yet.
Right.
well, and
You know,
that's
and
the
then
problem,
maybe-
you know, you have this order and there's no flesh on this.
Right.
I mean, and
We don't
And
even
then
know
we
if it's
need-
necessarily
Well,
legal yet.
So here's my situation, right, where I work. I have to do a 941 every quarter, right? And my 941 doesn't ask me how much my employee was withheld for Social Security. It just says how much, what my percentage is based off of the QuickBooks tells me this is what I have to pay as the employer, right? It doesn't say, it says this is what you have to pay as the employer, and then this is what you withheld. So you have to add that, now you have to give me this money, right, to the state, right? So, I mean, I think that it's worth investigating. If it could be, I think nobody's gonna take it, to be honest. I don't think anybody would take it, but I think if somebody does want to take it, I don't think that we're in a position to tell them no. I mean, we have the authority to do it, but I don't think we're in a
It's being
position to do it.
litigated
We have
now,
that
so
ability.
then we might have to
Yeah.
claw back that money from that employee.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is if it becomes overturned into the Supreme Court like it's being challenged now, is we gotta tell that employee, you need to give us this amount
The
back.
employer
Okay.
portion is not
because it's
included.
not in act legislation.
Right.
That's the problem.
The employer part is not included.
Be premature.
Yeah,
to
the
do
employer
anything
part is
now.
not included. It's just the
Medicare and the
employee,
employer portion are not included.
yeah, it's only the employee withholding.
And
Most
the employee.
municipalities are not doing anything
Right.
at this point.
There's a lot
So
of
we were
talk.
just gonna raise the issue and say, well, to see how you guys felt, if we wanna move in that direction, then, of not doing it, then that's great. And maybe we could write a memo to the employee and just say, this is what we've decided to do. We could probably explore doing it for, one person, if they really, or
Yeah.
two, if they wanted, but,
I mean, I went to my employees and I gave them the option. Nobody took
yeah.
it. I gave them the option. I mean, and once explained to them, you know, it's an option that's available to them. I explained it and how much it was gonna be and what the potential might be for repayment. But nobody took it because it's such a small amount. But I looked at it as I'm the employer. It's not my, I don't tell them, you know, if they don't have any kids, I don't tell them not to write down 9 dependents. If they want to pay in taxes at the end of the year, that's their choice, right? I'm just paying them, and if the government says I have to take this money out, I have to take it out. If the government says you don't have to take this money out, it's not my decision to decide whether or not to take it out. It's their decision whether or not they would like it taken out.
But that's the issue, the government hasn't said that.
They have,
There's nothing
I would
formal.
move to table this till we have future information, and at that time we can enact it, but I would think at this time Libby could go on as status quo.
I second.
We just don't have enough information.
It does say it's deferred, it's not based on your future wage, it's based on your
So
existing wage.
basically, we are setting it aside until we have more
We
information.
need a vote, do we?
Do we need a vote?
A motion.
Okay,
He
seconded.
seconded
Got
it.
a motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. E, state of the old canning factory building.
You should have got a handout. This was from Paul Hanlon, he's our building inspector, and, he sent it over to Bob, and Bob can take it from here.
Right, we had, was that brought up at the last meeting, the condition?
Yeah.
I think. And so Paul went over there yesterday, and these are his findings. He mentioned that there was some possible storage of hazardous materials, you know, potentially, and that we may want to talk to, I guess it would be the fire chief. I was thinking if we can get Dave Thorne or somebody to go over there and look at that before we correspond with MidCon, that it'd be best to know all of the issues that we have. I'm assuming that can be done fairly quickly. But then, you know, it is open, and I don't know, if people are people going on the property, are kids going there?
Yep.
Riding
That's
bikes,
the-
walking,
That's what I would
passing
guess.
through,
Yep,
Yes.
so,
cars
you
go
know,
back there and sit.
The police chief,
Yeah.
I believe, you
Yeah.
mentioned that also, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, and it sounds like they put up cameras,
Yeah.
additional cameras since the last time that I spoke. And, they're bringing us the video because the building is supposed to be secure, however, they're breaking into the building. So it's like every time they fix a lock, it seems like.
There's no way
they
it's secure, it has
lost it.
holes in the walls.
Well, but they're breaking the door, they're breaking the locks.
No,
Yeah,
there's
this is why
holes in
it's-
the wall, there's
I
no wall.
understand, I understand that, but they're locking it and they're breaking into it.
That
Yeah,
must
I
be
know
the-
that there's holes in the walls too, but they're
But
not
this is
using
the-
the holes in the walls.
There's like no wall.
but this is an outbuilding, right?
Yeah, this is a
This
different
one-
Yeah.
building.
Oh, this is a different
Yeah.
building, yeah.
There's literally like no
Yeah.
walls on the side of the building.
No, there's.
It's not a
there's
door.
There's secured buildings that they're
Yeah.
breaking into.
No, this would be the hole in the outbuilding or any, you know, hazardous situation there. And would also question,
I didn't see those.
storage of things outside that may very well be toxic.
Yeah. Well, my concern is the building is becoming, that outbuilding is
It's an
becoming
eyesore.
dilapidated.
Right.
And I'm concerned, once
Right.
the winter rolls around and we pile 3 feet of snow on top of it with ice and,
Well, and that's.
and it's gonna
that's-
become
yeah,
a
that's
safety
what-
hazard.
Yeah,
It
that would
is
be
a
the
safety
question of, you know, what, unless the discussion has been had already, have we, I mean, do we know what MidCon's plan is, if any?
The holes in the floor are very concerning because, I mean, obviously there's a lot concerning, but I look at the holes in the floor and that's like an immediate, that could be our first responders, that could be stress on them because, I mean, I don't know how deep those holes go, but that could be an extraction out of there. I mean, that's,
I agree, we should send
Does
them
our
a
fire
letter and let
department
them
know?
respond to us how they're gonna
This looks like.
patch or take care of these, conditions that exist that we, you know, we want them to work, how they would, proceed.
Yeah, I mean, you would think with the outbuilding, if it has no purpose and it's open, there's a cost in raising it, but that's the very issue here. If the cost of repairing a facility is more than it's worth, there's a presumption that it should be raised. And, you know, they're probably gonna be reluctant to do so because it's at some expense to them, but that's part of the liability of being a property owner.
Yeah.
what about our fire department? I mean, I know that they inspect businesses around town, that they do fire inspections. Would they be able to inspect? I mean, this is building inspector, but this would be fire. This would be, there's potentially employees going in here and you have holes in the floor.
Yeah, I think if we send Dave Thorne over there, besides the storage materials, he can look at that as well too.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks at that, I mean, that to me is, well, obviously, there's fire hazard, but I think a public safety issue, you know, there's,
And I brought it up because I see kids walking down the tracks and then they cut through that building and then they're having, they're, you know, I think the kids breaking into the rooms with the locks is a completely different, that's a law enforcement. I mean, if it's locked up, it's secured, that, I think the company is doing their job, right? But that outbuilding, is becoming, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, so I would like, if we could ask Paul if it's structurally sound.
I would think over there, we were talking about raising it, and we don't have the expertise to tell that, you know, a steel building will hold a tremendous amount of weight, so we need somebody that will give us a better view of it, like Paul.
like that, and then also in addition to that, our fire inspection. Because it's commercial property, correct?
Yes.
And that's subject to fire inspection. I think any firefighter walking in there would probably, their eyes would bulge out of their head.
Do we need a motion for you to go ahead with this, Bob, or?
No, not necessarily. You know, it's only if you were to force or direct some activity to be taken at this point. So if if I understand right, I go back to Paul. I ask for additional input as well as Chief Dorn.
Okay.
And then once we have additional information, and maybe we even want to, at that point, engage MidCon with just what,
I think that is,
informally before we even come back here, because I would hope that they would be responsive. And we can do that, and then we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah, it's very possible some of management at MidCon doesn't even know what this looks like. It's very possible, and I would hate to, I don't, I think, yeah, absolutely include them in that
Okay.
inspection.
So, yeah, so I don't need any vote on that, that's just a status report.
Okay. We'll move to F, O-9-20, adoption of new village ordinance code.
So that's,
Okay. Has everybody done their homework here?
so this is the new code. Nothing was changed that wasn't approved by you guys during the cow, or wasn't discussed and approved by you guys, other than state law changes. So,
Yeah, and,
everything that was actually changed was kind of, I know some of the bigger chapters Chris did, early on, and you guys actually voted on already. The other changes were all the ones that we brought to you during the initial cow, I guess.
So, okay, so I have a couple of questions. I read through this. There's a few things that raised flags to me. So, one is, I think it's section 2, or is it section 3? Section 2 at the end. So it says anything June 5th, 2020. So it's not included in the code or recognized and continued by, enforced by reference therein are repealed. Right? So if we have already approved all of the changes in here, why do we have a general statement in here with no details that says anything that's not included in the code, which is over there,
Right.
we're going to by fiat repeal. I don't like that general. I don't like. I hate general statements to
We haven't had
begin
one
with.
since that date, that's why.
Yeah, well, yeah, but if we have already voted on the
You didn't
changes,
vote on any changes.
we didn't.
Except for the animals and the parks,
Yeah.
that we brought
So-
to you separately.
so Jim, we
Those
do,
were all approved, yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
you're right. So we have to formally adopt the code of ordinances, so you would be taking action to do that. So that's a legislative act to adopt that. And I
Yes.
guess that's my answer. And you need to repeal anything that came before. We've incorporated everything that we want, presumably, in this. You need a clean slate. We don't want anybody going back to an old ordinance. So we're saying, we're starting from scratch, and this is it. This is the code we're gonna adopt. Now, going forward, we obviously can make amendments to this, and when we do, we'll be adding it, that's being the loose leaf feature, that's the nice part of it, I guess. But, so does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yes, somewhat. I mean, it still leaves the question of the changes between the previous and the current, because we're voting to do a blanket repeal without details of anything that is not included.
You were
Right.
given that at the last HOW meeting when this was first discussed.
Okay.
Those were the only changes that was approved by you guys. I
Okay.
think there was 10 changes. Other than that, nothing else has been changed other than state law changes. Or like mile per hour on certain streets that were listed wrong in the old book.
And they may have been moved around here to different
Right.
Yeah, okay,
sections,
I understand that.
But they're in there.
I understand that. I just don't, I don't like the wording. If there were only 10 changes, I would rather see the 10 changes listed as sub-items on here, rather than saying everything that we didn't include in that book is before this date is repealed now. Right? Because I'm not gonna read through that whole book. And this doesn't tell me, and I'm not gonna read through that whole book and the book prior to that
Well,
and see what changes there are.
I did.
Okay,
No,
There's
I
the
did,
old
I took the 2 volumes that we had,
yep,
and I was cross-referencing, and I gotta believe that these guys did.
yep.
And so, I guess, yeah, that needs to be done, and I think it was done, right?
Yeah.
As far as we know.
Okay,
And then the ordinances that are in there, are the date of the original approval, are those still there that we could, so I always look at a date of approval and then
I
I can
think they
maybe
are.
look at the
I
meeting
I
minutes.
thought they are.
They
I'm
are,
just gonna double
they
check.
Okay, but that, it's nice to know that, so you could go back to the meeting
Right.
minutes when it was discussed, and I wanna
Yeah.
make sure we don't lose that.
Absolutely.
So everything in
But-
the binders that was, we used to have two big binders that were
Yeah,
there,
there's 2 volumes.
2 volumes.
And like you say, Jim, that's why I said, some of these sections have moved around,
Yep,
so it's kind of like, okay, where did that go? But as far as I could tell, everything that we had in the 2 volumes is addressed here. Although there's some rewrites, like the animal code,
right,
what we had there, we just started from scratch.
right.
But on those that the board didn't address specifically, those were incorporated from the old 2 volume set.
And we change those periodically as we see if something's not
I mean, there's
the way it
probably,
should be or worded correctly. We bring it to the board to redo. So,
Okay, devil's advocate here, let's say we do find that there's something that was in one of those binders that we missed, what do we do?
Well, going forward, you'd have to re-adopt, you know, you'd have an ordinance that comes in front of you and.
Does that
you
address
would
what you're
adopt
asking
it.
for, Jim? Like,
Yeah,
like
I
if
mean,
we missed something, holy cats, we forgot that one. What's gonna happen to these binders? Are they just gonna get tossed into a shelf
No,
or
keep them
something?
there.
On the ball.
Okay,
there's
you
one
wanna
already in the vault.
So they're not gone per se, and is all of that electronic now that we can put on our
It will be
website?
as soon as we pass this and sign it and send it off to them.
Oh, that would
That was
happen.
their
to have it on the
ordinance that
website.
they created. We didn't touch it. Bob didn't touch it. I mean, he looked it over, but
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, they created that. That was their stuff, so that's what they send to every municipality.
okay.
So,
It is scary though, 2 big binders down to that little thing. I mean, you just wonder,
well, it's a lot smaller of text,
okay.
and it's double.
It is, I'm like, how
and
can we
much
go?
And
improved.
it's,
It's not handwritten anymore.
It's not handwritten.
Yeah.
and it is double, it's 2
It's-
pages.
With the
Yeah.
quill pen, yeah, and I get it, I mean, I get it, I mean, I look at those 2 big binders and think, gosh, that's great, but I hope we're not missing anything, so I think, does that address what you were,
It does. It addresses the concern, because, you know, we're the ones who have to vote on it, and we're not the ones who went through it. So if somewhere down the road, somebody does something, right, and it was in the ordinances, and they violated some ordinance, and it's an enforceable, or it has something to do with a dispute between parties in the village, and we just repealed it because you missed it or you missed it. It doesn't go back to you,
No,
it comes
that's
back to
right.
us, and there's no detail here.
But Chris has also looked at it, you've specifically looked at all violations and forfeitures, have you not, Chris?
I have, just to confirm that they're what we had to what we have.
Okay. All right, I also have I think it's in section 4 here, the fines, and then so up to the maximum permitted or required by state law. So are we changing something here? Are we changing the fines or penalties that we've,
Some of them we had to add, like for instance, the parks, it's Park and Rec, because we did have we only had like 3/4 of a page for Park and Rec.
okay,
So we changed it to almost 6 pages of document.
That was at a
So-
board meeting.
Huh?
Yeah.
That was at a board meeting.
That was
There's
at a
whole
board meeting, right?
bunch of-
So
Okay.
basically what we do is, and we're still working and we're still going through it, but we have to have each ordinance, we have an Excel sheet. So we had to add all of those different ordinances for park, all those different ordinances for firearm, take out the old ones that we weren't using or aren't using anymore. And then we put in a dollar amount that is equivalent to other municipalities, so that we're kind of all in the same path. And then the judge has to approve it. I can't give it out, the judge is the one that has the final say over it.
okay, I just wanna be sure that we're not, all of a sudden, through a vote in mass, adding a whole bunch of potential fines and penalties that weren't part of our ordinance code already.
No, it's just
No,
saying
it's-
that there's state law, so like the minimum's increase, then we can't give them a $10 fine if the minimum went up to 20 based on state law.
Okay.
So at that point, we can't touch it.
Okay, and then the
Yeah.
second part on this says that each active violation and each day upon which, basically, it's a separate offense for every single day as a blanket statement. Does that apply to every ordinance that we
No.
have?
No, just certain
Then,
ones.
this reads that it does.
Yeah,
There's,
That's the way that this reads.
there's a lot of them that can.
I
So-
understand, there's a lot that can, but
Yeah.
this reads that this is how every single ordinance that we have is now enforced. And that every new day that they're in violation of that ordinance is a subsequent violation. That's a blanket statement in here.
if there's an ongoing violation, I mean, that's the way it was under the old code, typically like with a nuisance. That's how they're all written, that, each day is a separate offense, and that's what gives it teeth.
Okay, I understand that there are a lot of things that apply, that applies directly to. But the first statement that I said was, does this apply, does that type of fineage apply to every ordinance that we have, that there can be a fine applied? I mean, does that apply to every, like?
Well, no, it's a traffic violation, you're picked up for speeding that day.
Yes, but,
It's one
so like
time.
our grass cutting, right?
Grass cutting would each day.
Is it every
would
single
be-
day, or do we
if-
do that like
Yes.
every week?
Every day.
No, you
It's
could
every day.
You could every day.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so every ordinance that we have that this could be applied to. There's no ordinances with fines, because I'm asking this because this is a very blanket statement that says every ordinance violation automatically becomes another violation the next day if you haven't corrected it.
If
So-
there's an ongoing, I would say that's right.
So there's nothing that we have that you have, there's a violation, so you have a week to fix
Well,
it?
But I would say what you have is discretion.
Right.
Yeah,
In that
Well,
case-
this doesn't allow for discretion.
Jim, you have discretion
I
both
understand
at the
that.
We as law
at the
enforcement have-
charging level and also
Yeah.
at the judging level.
Okay,
And these ordinances are very typical, and they're out there because you need them for that one or two people who are gonna push you to the limit. And even after you take them to court, you see some judgments that are ridiculous. The person owes so much money because they refuse to follow the law, right?
yeah,
But it's discretionary, so the fact that it can be imposed doesn't mean it has to be imposed.
okay. I understand, I'm just trying to make sure I understand, because
Yeah.
I'm very wary of blanket statements, and I'll read through it and it says, okay, yeah, you are gonna get rid of everything in the pack. Okay, well, where's the list of everything we're getting rid of? And everything we do is a new penalty every single day. So, they're concerning to me, but,
What helps me on that one, Jim, is the words of each act of violation. So, like I think of, okay, then we talked about the lawn mowing, but if you sped through town, you're not gonna get a violation every single day until you pay that fine.
Yeah,
from-
yeah.
I mean,
But if you
now,
do-
if you
yeah.
speed through town every single day,
But the
each
act, right.
each act of violation,
Every time your dog runs at large, you can get a fine.
okay.
So if your dog runs, we got one, we picked him up 4 times this month, and we just keep giving him fines. But that's what it's for. If we have somebody who, say for instance, we have somebody who decides that they wanna take up one of the parks as their home at night, every day we catch them in there, we can give them a fine for that.
Okay.
It could also be for somebody who's the cutting the grass. So if we go over, we can give somebody 15 days or 5 days or whatever to clean up some nuisance on their property, but we can also give them a fine every day that they don't cut their grass.
Okay.
Because grass grows so fast and everything else. The same thing with a dog nuisance, could be the same thing with a dog license. There's a lot of things that we can continuously give them fines, and hopefully they comply, because they're getting a fine every day.
Oh, I definitely understand the purpose of it.
Right.
I mean, and the application,
Right.
and the motivation behind it. I just wanted to pose the question that, does it apply to every single ordinance that we have? Because I can't think of one off the top of my head, but for some reason it's nagging it's nagging me right now that there's something that I'm not thinking of that it shouldn't necessarily apply to. And it's been bugging me for the last few hours that I've been trying to think. It'll come to me in a couple of days and I'll be like, oh, shoot, I should have brought that up. Other than that, that was my concerns with the document.
So we
Anyone
would
else?
ask for a motion to adopt the code of ordinances. Do you have the language there, Nate?
I don't have the ordinance with me.
You
Old
just-
dash nine.
Right here.
Yeah, there we go.
Then I'll make a motion to adopt O-9-20, adoption of new village ordinance code.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Dan.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. G is R-25-20, Urban Forestry Board.
So, all of these resolutions were ones that were in the ordinance initially, that that basically we decided that we were gonna make them all in the same area. Because we have committees that are in resolutions currently, that's how they should be listed. So these were be taken out of ordinance and they're just moved directly into resolution.
I didn't follow that at all.
It
Not at
basi-
all.
Changes category. It used to be an
Right,
ordinance, now it's gonna be a
I didn't touch
resolution.
any of the language in it, except for there was one correction because of the,
There's a couple corrections.
yeah, there was a couple, errors in the language, the way it was written, pointed out by Bob, reimbursement to reimbursement.
So currently, these were just in our ordinance book, they didn't
Right.
belong there. We simply just need to make a resolution, because
Right.
that's where they belong, in
Right.
a resolution.
Right.
Right.
So nothing changed, so to speak, unless there was a spelling error, is that
Correct.
wrong understanding? So you're just, and you need a motion for each one of these individually,
Right.
correct?
And I did correct them, the mistakes that Bob pointed out, I corrected, and then I sent that all to you, the corrected document.
So these are existing committees?
Yes, in our ordinance.
Who's on them?
No one.
No, hang on.
No one has, well.
I mean,
some
the
of them,
historical
guess.
one, I think.
Well, that's
but-
preservation. I'm on urban forestry.
They're on urban forestry.
I was as a citizen.
I've never heard of the Equal Opportunities Commission, but I'm on two of these committees.
Okay, so
The
you're
Equal
on-
Opportunities Commission was created, I'm guessing, around the 90s when they were looking for the CBDG, which was then called the WDF loan for the Wisconsin Deferred Fund,
Okay.
which we ended up rescinding. It's not necessarily something that needs to stay because it's not been used from what I can tell. It's something you could keep as a potential ad hoc if you needed to, but
Or could we get rid of it?
We could just instantiate it anytime we needed it.
Is
If
it
it's
something
not
that
right.
we don't need,
It needs to
Bob?
be a standing
You
commission.
wouldn't have to adopt that, as far as I know.
I just said I was
we
gonna
know
bring
no
everything
reason.
forward.
There's
Yeah,
no
we're
reason.
unaware of any reason why we would use it at this point in time.
Yeah, and why you probably haven't heard of Historic Preservation, Jim, is it's kind of a group that meets when necessary. The last time they really had any meetings was,
Oh, no, that one.
but when we were designing the downtown zoning code was the big
Yeah.
part of it. Urban forestry, we have to have that one because of the Arbor Day,
Right.
right? We're Tree City. We were required to have an urban forestry board in order to be a Tree City USA.
Okay.
So the fact that you see a sign out by Alonzo that says Tree City USA,
Right.
we wouldn't be able to be a Tree City unless we have an urban forestry board. And Carl kind of heads that up and,
Yeah, and it says in there who's on it. The trustee that's currently on it, I believe, is Julie.
Yeah.
And the last has never been read.
And they have a reserve fund?
They
Ally's
do.
on it.
yeah.
Ally's on it.
We've done, in fact, years ago, a couple years ago, obviously this spring we didn't do anything Arbor Day wise, but we did, but it was separate. They've handed out seedlings at Arbor Day events, that sort of thing. I mean, it's not,
We have
Initially, it was a
It's
bigger
a
deal.
small-
Initially, it was a bigger deal.
Any
you want to be on
idea?
a committee but don't want a huge commitment, that's your committee, right there.
So, I read through these and I was wondering, how come they can't accept grants?
That would be a Carl question.
Yeah, I would
'Cause
ask Carl.
I don't think they're part,
It's
it
more
depends on, I
advisory.
guess, I think it's a representation of the village. It's not necessarily, like, the village would accept the grant, not necessarily the urban forestry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to do with,
Okay.
we had to have it because of something else
It
we
has
wanted
to-
to have,
It
yeah.
has, the municipality is gonna accept the grant, but, on,
Yeah.
on behalf, well,
Not
Yeah,
coming,
but-
but
to in order to get a grant, you have to have that.
have to have that board.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a need for the historical and the urban forestry, but we could potentially dissolve this Equal Opportunity Commission?
Or should we just
Or
have it
just-
available?
Well, we can create it anytime we want, I mean, as an ad hoc, but,
We have no use for it.
if we
Is
have no
there-
use for it,
Been
there's no
any-
specific purpose for it. This has
Not
Arbor Day
anymore.
and giving out tree and.
I think
this
it was
one has-
used for if someone complained when they went for the WDF loan, because it's based on income, if they complained that they didn't get it because of race or sexual orientation or
Is
something.
there any
For fear
other,
of-
are there any
Right.
other situations that would
Well-
warrant it though, Bob, in the village, do you think, that,
Opportunity.
Ad hoc employment potentially.
any kind of,
I mean, I think it might be good to keep
Discrimination.
it just, since we don't really know
It
whether we
doesn't
need
hurt
it
to
or
have
not. Maybe we could research it before we just eliminate it.
I guess
Be a good
yeah,
idea.
just the wording of it just concerns, have it available. It's just a page in the book, right? So
Well,
that
it's
we
a
have,
resolution.
right, but, and it's been
It's
there.
already been created by resolution.
Right.
It exists. We could research and find out, what it actually does more, and if we need it, we could come back to the next meeting.
And if there
let
was
you
a
guys know.
if there was a situation,
Is
then
this
we
one a
could appoint
resolution now?
people.
We
It's a
can-
resolution now.
It was in the ordinance.
We're
We're trying to make it a resolution.
Yeah.
Moving
Right.
from ordinance
Just
to
taking
ordinance.
Taking it out of the ordinance.
Well, it has a spelling error, so that needs to be fixed before we do anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
another one?
The
So
second line
basically,
says
we should be doing
opportunities.
one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
So-
should,
Is there
But
ordinances?
we keep all three at this point, but do some research, and if we can eliminate one, we eliminate one. Yes? Is this how I'm understanding it?
Well, I think we'd want to go to the resolution approval for the board and the Historical Preservation Commission.
So just the two, and then
And
research
then
the
table the
third.
other one for
Yeah.
research.
Or I would
And also-
personally just keep it, or table it, whatever you want to do, until we can find out more if we actually need one or want
There's
one.
another one, not a spelling error, but the commission members in that first section needs to be capitalized.
so let's take the R 25-20
Okay.
first.
I'll
Do I
make a
have a
motion
motion?
to approve R-25-20, Urban Forestry Board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to H, R-26-20, Equal Opportunities Board.
I would make a motion that we table this until such time as we can determine whether it's necessary, whether it still serves any function.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I, R-27-20, Historical Preservation Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve R-27-20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And on J, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
Nope.
If not, we'll move to 9, report of village officials. A, interim administrator.
A couple points. I wanted to thank all the board members who I talked with or got comments from related to the questionnaire. I passed all that on to Chris Schwartz, who's doing the study, and still have a couple days, I think, before he starts writing, so if anyone has any more comments, you can get those to me. Chris was here on Wednesday, what's today, Thursday, yesterday. Chris was here all day, talked to every employee almost, except for the police department, talked to the chief and the sergeant. So we've got either verbal or written communication from every employee related to the questions he had for staff. So a lot of good input and feedback. He's trying to put this on the fast track, understanding that you guys haven't decided necessarily a course of action, but we're wondering if the week of the 5th might be a possible, there might be a day that week that he could come, give his report, and we could have a discussion about proceeding. Because if you do decide to start the recruitment, or start recruiting for a position, it would be good to get it going, basically. I don't know how that week
So we
looks.
would have a board meeting on the 1st, so this would be the next week, so what is everyone available that we could
Any night.
bring this in? Is there one certain night
I
that
think he
would work
said
better
that
for
he was
him?
free right now, that week.
Okay.
Maybe if we have 2 options, that would be good in case he had some conflict come up.
Is this room being used for anything, court, anything?
Court would be that first Wednesday, right?
Well, that would be the
On
7th.
7th.
We did check, we didn't see anything on the schedule, right?
But court is always in here, sorry.
I have,
Wednesday.
Oh,
I
that
have
week.
Monday and
Oh,
Thursday,
okay.
so the 5th and the 8th
First Wednesday of the
available.
month.
First Wednesday always.
So Wednesday's out, and Jim just said you have what?
I have Monday and Wednesday available. Tuesday and Wednesday I have obligated.
No, Monday and Thursday you available.
You said Monday.
Monday and Thursday I have available. Tuesday and Wednesday I have obligations already.
Tuesday's library board, October 6th.
So is
How about
everyone
Thursday?
okay with,
Thursday.
Thursday the 8th?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I think he had mentioned Thursday as his best day, so.
okay, so Thursday the 8th, is everyone available?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, are we calling it a committee of the whole? What is this?
I think the committee of the whole, we
Would
might,
we be in closed
we
session?
might want to go into close at the end for some discussion related to the
Okay.
position, possibly.
Would there be action you'd want to take? Would you
Yeah.
want to take action then?
There probably would need to be.
So that'd be a
That has to be a
special
board
board
meeting.
meeting
Special
rather than a call.
Yeah,
It would have
special,
to be a
probably
special board meeting?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
is everyone on board with that?
Yeah. What time?
So the 8th at what time? What's good for him?
He can come whenever you guys.
What is good for everyone else? 5, 5:30?
5:30 works better for me. 5:30. How about you?
I mean, 5:30 works better for me, but I can make 5 work.
I'm in the same situation.
You just have
5:30
to
works
leave
better,
work.
but 5.
So was Domino's early, so at night, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, why don't we do 5:30 then?
5:30?
5:30 October 8th?
5:30.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
And that's to discuss the findings
He will
of
give
the.
his, the report, the organizational study that he's working on, he'll give his findings.
We'll decide what we're
And
gonna do
then
from there.
we could have.
Discussion and action on
Possibly,
recruitment?
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, because he said something about putting it out there on the 10th maybe, or so?
He could
11th?
start, yeah, if
Yeah.
you guys decide, based on what he says, that that's what you wanna do.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else, Dave?
No.
Okay, then we'll move to B, clerk treasurer.
The budget is well underway. All the department heads have returned their budget numbers to me, and we've updated the budget for 2021, but it's obviously still a work in progress with many variables unknown. I did pass out the schedule, which I will share with all the department heads, potential for the public hearing and when we're gonna adopt the budget. So,
Did, and this may not be the right place for the reports, but somewhere along the lines, is the COVID stuff affecting the bypass and hence affecting the budget at all or are we not just planning on everything going the way it's scheduled still?
yeah.
We don't
I
have any
think
new
Carl
information?
thinks it's gonna stay as scheduled because it's so far already in the process for them to, they're gonna he said that they would most likely cancel anything that's lower on the list that hasn't really started planning and there's bearing cables. That's what he said. I don't,
And
we haven't heard anything from the state or anything
There's
about
a
it.
lot of utilities being moved
Yeah,
in the last couple months.
Okay.
Oh, the gas.
I don't know if
Heavy
Dan might have a
equipment,
better
highway M.
idea.
Mhm.
That's in that path that they've been putting utilities and running,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
there's been somebody out there every day this week.
So Jane, I do have a question, since this is your time. election absentee ballots, are you adequate with staff and you've got
Yes,
everything you
we
need?
got them all mailed out, there was 420. We did have Christina come over and help us for a couple hours. So they are all mailed out, everyone that we've had on file, so they can still apply for an absentee ballot up until Thursday, the 29th of October.
Okay.
So, right now, we're good.
You're good, okay.
I had somebody ask me about that,
Okay.
about dropping off absentee ballots.
Yep. And we do have the drop box right in the hallway there.
Okay, that
So
was the specific question, was
a
if
lot of
we have a drop box.
municipalities are buying ones and setting them out there, and now they've come across, the state says we need to have seals on them, and they have to be under video surveillance, camera surveillance, so ours is good to go.
And it's open 24/7, it's right by the little
Right.
pantry.
It's right by the drug drop
Right.
off.
Yep,
And we had Lisa put a sign, she had a sign on there, but it didn't say absentee ballot, so she added that. So I took a picture and put that on Facebook, so people could,
so if people are worried about mailing, they
Right.
can
It's in the
physically
foyer
drop it
place?
off.
right.
In the foyer or inside?
It's inside the
Yeah.
building here.
Right next to the
Right
drug
next to
box.
the drug drop off.
And I think Carl said it'll hold about 50, but we'll check it every morning and probably maybe twice a day, but it should be good.
Yeah.
We should probably check our drug box every once in a while too, in case somebody,
Does something dumb.
Oh,
okay, I'll put that in my radar.
An in-person absentee, you haven't determined dates yet, right?
the dates are set, that's
Oh, they
always
are.
2 weeks before the election.
Okay.
We're still working on the time because
Times.
we're just, if Nathan and I are pulled across the hallway here to have a good flow and to, take care of all the people, it leaves a hole over there. So we're thinking maybe 1 to 3, I don't know, we'll see. We don't know how busy it will be,
What is
And we
it?
have to publish that, but we can always change the publication, but we need to nail down times.
What is in-person absentee?
They can come, you have 2 ways to get an absentee ballot. You
Okay.
either get it mailed to you or you come in here and do it in person.
Oh, okay.
We were going on vacation one time and I knew I wasn't gonna be here for election, so I came in and voted. I, at the time, never even considered through mail, and we just came in like a week before we left for vacation and I voted.
Okay. And you guys provide assistance for, I mean, because everything I've heard about the only time I did absentee was when I was in the Navy. But everything that I've heard is it's complicated in terms of it has to be signed here and it has to.
It's got
It's
instructions on the
got-
front of the envelope.
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
yellow.
it's highlighted.
Don't read.
And I copied the Madison's letter that goes out to the voters, because I think the one from the state was very cumbersome. I think it was a 3-page document.
Yeah,
So-
that's why I said it's.
And if they return it to us and there's time for me to mail it back to them, let's say they left out the voter signature or the witness signature, if there's time, I'll mail it back or contact them and come, tell them they have to fix the ballot.
Do we I know this is outside of the realm of this, but do we contact people when their ballots are rejected? Do we let them know?
Well, that would be one reason for rejection, if they were not signed or the witness didn't
Yeah.
put their name or address, so I would mail it back in time.
If there isn't time, do we still contact people and let them know?
No,
No, we don't. So if
But you're
people.
talking about the envelope,
Yeah.
right.
because they're actually not
Yeah.
open till election day.
Oh, okay,
Right.
I understand.
But the witness stuff is on the outside of the
Mhm.
envelope.
Yeah.
Really, the only
Right.
tricky part of that is if
You have
you're
to
on the
have
ballot, you
signatures on
can't
the
sign
outside.
it as a witness. So like, my husband had to go find someone else to witness when I was on the ballot this spring.
Right.
So,
Okay.
other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And so you see the envelope, so if it's not signed, but
Yep.
you know who it is,
I mail it back, and then they call me and say, I've already gotten a ballot, how come I'm getting another one? And then I say, well, your ballot was incorrect, or you missed something, so.
yeah.
I was just curious. I know there's been some debate about people making mistakes on the ballots and they get rejected and they don't know and they'll just do it year after year after year, make the same
If,
mistake.
when we open the ballots and we insert them into the machine on election day, if there's a mistake on, let's say they overvoted, the election inspectors remake that ballot, determining voter intent. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
Typically, it's in partisan primaries where they
Right.
cross-party vote,
Right.
and that gets rejected because they can't, or one of the sides gets
Yeah.
rejected. And
right,
if it's an overvote and you can't tell voter intent, then we just
have the machine inspect.
cast it as is, and the machine decides to deny it.
Okay.
But we have very, very few rejected ballots.
Right. I think we had one last.
Yeah,
And there's always at least 2 people watching that
Right.
process.
right, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll move to C, Director of Public Works. And Carl, we have a handout So then we'll move to D, police chief. Nothing. E, library director.
Yeah, that's just.
Not really. Our book sale is still ongoing in the hallway. We're continually, putting new items out there, taking items out off the tables that have been out there for a few weeks to freshen it up. The friends have done very well with this. Yeah, I guess that's really all I have.
Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll move to F, attorney.
Nothing.
Nothing. Can we strike G at this time on our agendas, since we don't have an administrator?
Oh, yeah, that shouldn't have been on there.
Okay.
Yes, I will take care of that. Thank you.
Okay. And then H, building permit report is in the packet.
Can I just back up just a teeny bit here? For Carl's, it looks like he put something in here that is, he put on here closed item on the top.
That's for
So,
closed session.
this is all
Yeah.
his notes for the agendas, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
So, I
So,
added
I just
the-
wanted to make sure that we know that that's not,
That none of this is shared.
Yeah.
well,
Right,
but
that's
like
why
the
you
front
guys
page.
are the only ones that have them, and.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we
shoot,
don't,
okay, I just wanna make sure,
Yeah.
okay.
right?
Sorry, Jeannie.
That's okay. And then I, court report, and I don't see anything in the packet this time. So then we will move to number 10, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News.
I have nothing.
Okay. B, Hortonville Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
Nothing.
I don't know if it was shared last time, but they had their budget, and it's only, I think it ended up being only a 2.7% increase, a 4% overall for them, but only 2.7 for us. Hortonia has the other portion, so there's no issues with their budget. At least I didn't see it. So that'll be passed with the other budget later on, but.
Okay, thank you. C is Gold Cross Ambulance Run Reports and News. There's none in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, and Peter is not here tonight. And E would be Senior Activities Committee. Pat?
Autumn Fest is on Tuesday. We have 70 lunches, which I'm just amazed that we have that many people coming to a drive-through event, but, so I'm pretty happy about that. We're gonna be putting the swag bags or the grab bags together on Monday. Agencies donated flyers and some things. We have a couple door prizes to give away. A mom that Lisa's babysitting for us, and Rose Gorski, who was here tonight, was able to secure music. She had a couple people cancel, and today she secured some music for us, somebody playing for that. So I think it'll be good. And then Chris, we can talk maybe sometime just to finalize location of the vehicles, that kind of thing. And then, I don't know, Nathan, if you want me to just mention that you and I met with the Outagamie Housing Authority and Neighbors Program. It's kind of a slash Neighbors Program, and Make a Ride Happen because of our new Hortonville, or Helping Hands of Hortonville. They weren't really sure where they fit in as far as transportation, so I think it was a good for us to sit down and kind of figure out a way to work together. So I think it was a good thing. We know where the gaps are. We're trying to make sure everybody's served, and it's not a competition for business is what I think some people felt. So I think that's all I have.
Any questions for Pat? We'll move to 11, comments and suggestions from citizens present. There are none. 12, I will need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Second.
Roll call. Dan?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we will need 5 minutes to clear the room.
I'm just gonna talk a little bit.
Okay, any action on matters discussed in closed session? If none, then I need a motion to adjourn.
Since Peter's gone, I motion to.
I'll
Go
second
ahead.
what he said. It was a co-motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're now adjourned.